I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, March the 30th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards, where they've got a normal run for the first time since we've had this coronavirus deal start, 7,000 head. Don't forget the primetime livestock video auction, their big video auction, and it'll have more on it because people have been holding cattle and they ended up actually postponing the last video sale that they had scheduled. But April the 16th, don't forget that primetime livestock video there at Joplin Regional Stockyards at the barn. Your board is lagging, and nobody has any confidence in your cattle market right now. And it's unbelievable how down everybody was at the tail end of last week, being that we sold fat cattle $10 higher live and $15 higher on a dress basis than we had the week before. Our cows and bulls were selling at big high levels there all week long until the tail of the week, and all of a sudden they kind of got what they needed, their immediate needs filled, and they backed their bids up big time. Your cow and bull plants backed your bids back at least $10, and actually you saw some of your cows and for sure bulls selling $10 cheaper standing in the ring live after a $10 pullback on their dress bids. But it's just that there's no longs out there to help us out. Nobody wants to take the long position, and in the past we've counted on your speculators, outside money to come in and take the longs. And I think at times during this coronavirus deal, especially when those investors would go into their local grocery store and see the meat shelves cleaned out, they did have some confidence and maybe did come in there and pump the market a little bit. But whenever they see that your cattle people cannot hold the market on anything, and the packers completely take advantage, and it's so easy for them to do, then why would you want to hold a market together if you don't have any confidence in them? And it's a sad sight. I tell you what, as pumped as we were probably a week ago at this time, it just kind of dried up pretty fast. But you think back to last week, where were we at? Well, we had a neutral to friendly, kind of the friendly side of a neutral cattle on feed report, and we were fearful of that report right here in the midst of this coronavirus deal. And I tell you what, that deal doesn't seem to be getting any better. We saw it just get so much worse this past week, with a lot more deaths, a lot more cases. We've got more cases than any other country now, and it's getting very frustrating. We've all been shut up for a couple of weeks now, and we're feeling cabin fever, and everybody's getting frustrated, and it's kind of a downer time right now. So soon after that cattle on feed report news come out there a week ago Friday, and it was neutral, and we thought we might get a little bit of a boost out of that. And then your board opened up the limit on feeders and fats on Monday, mostly in response to the token $5 that some of the packers gave for this past week's kill. And I tell you what, if you're talking about collusion, and you're talking about price gouging, and you're talking about manipulation of the market, and when all of us that are in the cattle business know that this is going on with your packer end. We had that big gains on your box beef cutout values there week before last, where they gained $47, and so your packers got an extra $400 that week. They weren't making $400. They were already making a couple of $100. They were making an extra $400 per head or per carcass there. And it got so ridiculous that there was a big call for an investigation. Department of Justice's name was brought up, and we heard through the grapevine that some calls were made around. And then we had a few of the packers give a little token bonus there on last week's kill. Well, if that's not admitting guilt, of manipulation, price gouging, and the like, I don't know what is. I mean, that's like, pulling a guy over and say, hey, I saw you rob that bank. And he said, no, I didn't rob that bank, but here's a couple of thousand for your troubles. Yeah, really. So we've seen basically admitting guilt. Why else would they give that? And so there's been a continuous push, and I think there'll be more investigation here by your Department of Justice. That right there is about the only positive we have in our markets right now. We know that the deck's stacked against us, but your cattle people, about the only thing that they see that they think is a positive is that maybe, just maybe, they might dig enough, and it's not going to be P&S this time, because we know what a failure they are. They're still kicking tires on the plant fire that happened 8 months ago. And so maybe now we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to get something worked out. We've got the awareness higher than it's ever been. We've got everybody that's got a group together of cattle people trying to do something. They won't get together and work in the same lane. They're all trying to do their own thing, but because they're wanting to know who's going to get the responsibility, who's going to get the credit when it's all said and done, whichever one comes across the finish line first. And it's absolutely ridiculous, and people outside the industry just shake their head and they think, gosh, you guys are a bunch of fools here. And if you step back and look at it, it's pretty much that way. You just let the packers completely take advantage every single week on everything. You see how much money, extra money they're making. A lot of times they hide the gains on box beef cutout values. They push them off out front where they don't get reported. But the thing about this last deal was your grocers, your retail people, they got caught really short, and then they needed product right now. Well, they were hand to mouth. Well, those were absolutely immediate delivery spot sales, and they had to show the gains that they were getting on their box beef cutout value reports, and it was so blatant in there. And then guys knew that, negotiated their deals, and still the packers, threw them a little bone there, absolutely admitting guilt. And some of them didn't even do that. Some of them just decided to keep that extra $70 or so for themselves too, as a little bonus, a little gravy there. And it's just, it's kind of sad, and you almost have to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you end up crying over the deal. But our retail shelves were blowed out there on the initial shutting down of your restaurants and people not going to work in a lot of cases and things like that. Well, we kind of replenished them a little bit, and if you got out and about like I did late last week and went to the stores, you didn't have maybe as good a selection as what you normally would have, but not bad. I mean, there was some even ground beef available, and there was some other things available. Still no toilet paper in most places, but still quite a bit better. Your food service is absolutely dead. Yeah, they are selling some carry out and delivery type food there, but that's not enough to keep your food service going. But we saw that our beef sales were up 77% there since this coronavirus hit. We've seen that some of your packers, JBS especially, showed that how much their profits was just unbelievable, like 330% higher. It's so blatant and in our face, yet we can't do anything about it. And we can't get excited about what's going to happen this week, but it seems like whenever things look the most desperate, that's whenever they turn around, one way or the other. But our fats on Wednesday, that was when we had the biggest amount of sales. They were mostly $10 higher live and $15 higher dressed, like I said before. So there we are trading. Our latest established live fat cattle price is $120. Okay, our spot April live cattle futures ended the week last week at $100.95. So $19 back. and Wednesday it'll be April. So what do you guys think is more likely to happen? Are fat cattle price falling 20 bucks or live cattle futures on the spot market gaining 20 bucks? I'm sure it'll be somewhere in the middle there, but just not a lot of confidence going right now. And I know you guys are thinking, God, why did I click on you to listen to it? Well, just look around. I mean, why would any outside investor in their right mind buy the board? Why would they bet on it to go up whenever those of us that are in the cattle marketing can't do anything? It's just going to be curious to see how fast we see some of these cash sellers puke their cattle and how cheap they'll puke them. It'll be interesting to see. I wish they had balls enough to send out a message on social media and say, okay, here I am, so-and-so feedlot right here. I'm going to sell some cash cattle right here about 10 or 12 bucks cheaper just to take advantage of the basis and just get out where I don't have to worry about it anymore this week. There should be maybe that's the rule we need. Let everybody know who's the fool first. Who's going to be the fool first this week, and how much lower are you going to take them, and how much carpet are you going to pull out from under all your fellow cattlemen. But we talked about your cow bids got pulled back late there. On Thursday and Friday sales were just a foot lower on your cows and bulls, and you guys that were wanting to take advantage of that, you waited too long. I think it will be better again as we get closer to our grilling holidays. If we ever get out of this damn shut-in deal, I think most all of us are tired of it. We know how dangerous it is. By God, I got Joe Diffie. Who's going to sing the pickup man now? But just pretty tough times. Let's look at the board for last week. April live cattle futures Monday was up the $3 limit. And let's look at that. On your live cattle futures, they were limit moves 4 of 5 days. Either up or down. Of the 5 sessions, we had limit moves in our spot live cattle futures. Is that a healthy futures market, I ask you? I was talking to some guys and they were talking about some of these framing speculators, that they pay a little extra to get the information just a split second before everybody else, and then they can dial their algorithms in, and then they spend a whole bunch of money to have a system that's just a little bit faster than everybody else, so that whenever we see the market going one way or the other, and we know that the market's very shallow right now, there's not a lot of play in it, that as soon as it starts going one way or the other, it just goes all the way to the limit, up or down. And it is so unhealthy. Your spot feeder cattle futures made limit moves 3 of the 5 sessions. So, how healthy is that? But April live cattle futures Monday up the $3 limit. Tuesday up the expanded $4.50 limit. Wednesday up $2.30. Well, that was enough. By God, they sold the fat cattle 10 bucks higher. Let's take her back down. Thursday down to $3 limit. Friday down to $4.50 limit. With April live cattle futures ending the week at $100.95. Just $2.30 higher for the week. June ended the week at $89.42. Actually a dime $100 cheaper for the week. April feeder cattle Monday up the $4.50 limit. Tuesday up the expanded $6.75 limit. Your March feeders actually went off the board, and they had to raise the limits to $10 on those this past week before they settled, just to make sure that they had room to get those settled. Wednesday was down $1.35. Thursday down $3.62. Friday down the $4.50 limit. April feeder cattle ended the week at $120.60, down $12. After all that, down 12 cents, I should say, not 12 bucks. $120.60, down 12 cents a hundredweight after all those limit moves up and down. May ended the week at $120.92, up $2.10. Your fats, like I said, the bulk of the sales were 10 bucks higher on a live basis from 116 to 120 and a half. There was a lot of 120, a considerable amount of 118. But by the time we got to the end of the week, we started seeing some more disappointing sales, some more of that 116 and things like that, but not enough to really establish the market, but just kind of clean up stuff on some guys that missed the boat. Dress sales ranged on steers and heifers from 185 to 191. That was 15 bucks higher for the most part, with a whole lot of 190 there. But we started seeing some disappointing sales of them late in the week. Iowa had about 2,400 head confirmed, 112 to 116 live and 182 dressed. But just a load here, a load there, maybe some giant hippopotamuses or some plainer cattle carrying a lot of mud, something like that. But not much else happening in any of your other trade areas that report. Box beef cutout values, they have not slipped. We all knew about the big gains that they made. They made the big gains, and no, they haven't continued to make the giant gains, but they haven't lost anything. They had a couple of the biggest movement weeks that they've had, and it's just staying right up there. Actually, the biggest gains, if you go by the week's volume, was this past week, because you look at the weighted average price on this past week's volume, all of it, was $12.04 a hundred higher on your choice cuts at $255.07. That's the weighted average price. So that's where the bulk of your sales were. We're way up there near the record price. Selects up $10.50 compared to the weighted average from a week earlier at $243.65. Now you think, okay, that's where the bulk of last week's trade was, with $11.42 choice select spread and 755 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings after selling over 1,100 loads the week before. But if you look at Friday, your last daily market on box beef cutout values, choice was $252.84, down less than $1, and select was $242.38, up more than $2. So they haven't lost anything. And they're already taking our fat cattle market away from us that was still $30 a hundred too cheap. And guys are just letting them do it. They do not care. I guess they don't care how much market position they give away if they just see some opportunity within their hedge to make a way to get out. But I can tell you what, guys, it takes everybody. And your cow-calf man, your stocker, your backgrounded guys, they've got to have some money for these cattle. They can't sit back and let you guys piss away all the market position, because it's just a paper trade deal for you guys, and it's just a basis. They've got to have some money. They've got to be able to buy things to do that. And it doesn't look like it's going to last. We're going to lose a lot of ranchers in this deal, a lot of them. A lot of them have been hanging on. They had lost most of their equity that they were hanging on with. They weren't able to get by without asking for more and bigger operating loans. This is going to take them out, guys. It's going to take a lot of them out. Your slaughter for last week, one of the biggest we'll ever see for sure this time of year. 676,000 head for last week, with a 75,000 head Saturday. Why is it so big if we've replenished the needs of these retailers? Why is it so big? Because your packers are greedy and they're making big money on this stuff, and they are going to run those chain speeds. We've had a couple of positive cases. Not that we want these packers to shut down. They're not shutting down for nothing, guys. We don't have to beg them to stay open. They're going to stay open. Don't worry about that. 676,000 head, 23,000 head more than the previous week, and 57,000 head more than the same week a year ago. Wow. And your fat cattle sellers are almost ashamed to ask them more money or steady money for their cattle. It's unbelievable. Your real-time index on feeder cattle, 131.60. That's up $10.80 and 12 cents for the compared to last week. We saw the big gains. We came out Monday with some big gains with a little bit more confidence. By Tuesday and Wednesday, we were seeing cattle sell higher than they did even immediately before the coronavirus deal broke out. You know, places like Kingsville Livestock Auction in Missouri, they were selling, 7 and 8 weight cattle in the 150s. That was way higher than we were before we really figured out what this corona deal was. And just unbelievable high. But then by the time we got to Thursday, it would have already started coming off of that. Well, when your board's down the limit, what do you think people are going to do? CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index, the latest available, is at 130.44. But look at your cash feeders for the week. Another light week, so now we're getting backed up on feeders because guys have been too scared to sell them and they couldn't get around quick enough to take advantage of the early week gains last week. But another light week, $8 to $15 higher though, and it's unbelievable that we've got that back. But now we don't feel very good about this week starting out, and just no confidence at all after all those gains. Gained 8 to 15 in your feeders, and $10 live and $15 dressed in your fats, and guys are kind of down about it. Nobody has any confidence. It's unbelievable. Look at Tri-State Livestock Market, Abingdon, Virginia, way out east there, guys. 64 head, 779 pound steers on Friday at 124.75. That'd be a pretty good buy on some of those good quality cattle if it was in the middle part of the country, but you're going to have some freight there. The guys need some help on their tele-auction here on Monday night. They're going to sell the steers on Monday night, the 30th here. The Abingdon Feeder Cattle Association's got a Virginia quality assured tele-auction. Butch Foster's going to be there. Get a hold of him. Call somebody that can get you a hold of him. He can tell you about those cattle, what they'll do. Don't be scared of those cattle. They're all long time weaned, even the calves, but there'll be a lot of yearling feeder cattle on there. The quality will be outstanding. The quality will look more similar to Nebraska than it will anything else. The cattle are the one thing they may be different than you see in the middle part of the country is they're going to be more moderately framed. So you guys that want to feed cattle for a premium, if you want some of those cattle that'll really get up there in the high choice and prime grade, this is what you want. There's not a lot of gangly type cattle there that are real framey, got a whole lot of daylight under them that are hard feeding. There won't be a lot of those. There'll be some of those really, really nice black cattle that will feed well, gain good, and grade their heads off. But that's on Monday the 30th on dvauction.com. You can watch that. It's like in the evening. I think it's 6 or 7 o'clock Eastern. So you guys take a look at that on the schedule on dvauction.com. You can view and bid right there. But go ahead and get signed up there and get approved to bid, because you're going to want some of those cattle and they're going to look cheap to you. That's just the way it is. Then on Wednesday, the 1st of April, they're going to come back with the heifers. They've got a lot of cattle to sell because they've been backed up too, and they're going to pull the plug on them. And they'll be offered in load lots, guys. This is no joke of a deal. They'll be offered in load lots, and it'll all be right. Fort Scott Livestock Market on Saturday, 62 head, 731 pound steers at 137.60. And then Torrington Livestock Markets had the big quote for the late in the week on Friday in Torrington, Wyoming. 169 head, 636 pound steers at $164. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.